Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space. We are back.
What was that? You put a little sauce on it.
Hey, what can I say? Sometimes it's time to bring out the sauce.
Well, like, you put a little sauce on it, but I feel like you kind of spilled and missed the bowl a little. Like, you started to put sauce, and then you pulled back.
Drawing's only fun if you colour outside the lines.
That's beautiful. Except that's not the only way drawing's fun. Also, that's coloring.
Hey, it's all the same hand.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, you don't... it's the same hand. You don't switch hands when it's time to colour.
Here in art civilization, you draw with your right hand and you color with your left hand. No one ever tries to color with the right hand.
Twisted world.
Have you seen the Minecraft parkour civilization video? No one ever tries to jump for the point.
I showed you.
Only half a hard more. No, I know, but you weren't the one who showed me, and I saw it.
You were so surprised when I showed you, and you couldn't believe it. You said, "What is this game?"
It's my favorite shonen. Anyway, we've wasted a minute. This isn't Aetheral Space.
Is the only one left. No!
Hold on. They'll kill us. This isn't the podcast. We have to read. Okay. Aetheral Space 13.73. Sky and Star. What did it mean to be bound by promises? Did it mean to be bound by every promise? Like a net to keep your entrails inside your body? Or could there be a hierarchy? Could the chain of one promise be tighter than the other? Was that even better, or was that tightness a cruelty? Was the weak chain truly weak, or just kinder? Aenir Yggdrasil was bound by promises, even if it was no longer sure what that meant. The promise of obeisance to one had been broken this night, for sake of obeisance towards another. If that truly was a sin, Aenir was not equipped to punish itself. So in this situation, it did the only thing it could. Aenir moved. One thing I noticed is after that happened, Aenir did not stop using all-cap space for a Toy Musashi. So clearly he still respects him, no?
Yeah.
In its current bodily configuration, Nidhogg, Aenir's sheer size... Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah. It is not.
Aenir's sheer size... Isn't that a game on Steam? With like little stick figures in the fencing?
In mythology, it's like a big serpent that's on Yggdrasil.
Nice. Aenir's sheer size and strength meant that it was more than a match for its two targets, even without any aether infusion to speak of. Letting out a roar of grinding bark, it swept its vine-like tail across the rooftop, the appendage crushing everything it rushed over. Akalaima went to rush towards the incoming tail, no doubt thinking it was filled with wisdom she could attack with her ability, but Anya Hapgrass saw through it immediately. She pushed in front of the Supreme Heir and planted one of her two flags into the rooftop before her, between the two women in the attack. Aenir had never seen Anya Hapgrass fight before, but it was vaguely familiar with her abilities through the research Morgan Noct had presented it the night before. She wielded two flags, Bright Surrender and Dark Resistance. The two flags projected spherical fields around themselves when planted, their precise effects differing. Bright Surrender attracted weapons and attacks, while Dark Resistance repelled them. This is just like the boundary fields in Cradle. In short, they were magnets for violence. Anya Hapgrass had planted Dark Resistance this time, and so Aenir's tail came to a sudden halt as it reached the projected field. The speed with which it had been moving suddenly turned against it, and the backlash tore the tail in two, the severed end dropping off the edge of the roof. Akalaima took advantage of the sudden interruption in Aenir's attack, rushing towards its massive head as quickly as she could. One of her... Sorry, one second. Yeah.
It started to take effect.
I'm so sorry. I got some, acid reflux. One of her hands was open, grasping at empty air, ready to use Curse Hand, while the other dragged her massive cleaver sword behind her. Aenir went to take flight again, but to escape Akalaima's range, but Morgan Noct was already taking action. The young man flipped off of Aenir's head, sword whistling through the air, and landed directly in front of Akalaima. Their clash was immediate. Again and again and again, the black cleaver struck against the pale blade. Aenir went to snap down at Akalaima before she could use Curse Hand, but danger! Instead, it had no choice but to launch itself up into the air once more. Anya Hapgrass had pulled a black spear out of thin air, some kind of armament with fire blazing from the back like a rocket's thruster, and hurled it towards Aenir. Now it zoomed off into the night, a red dot slowly growing dim. Aenir knew not what that attack had been, but its well of instinct told it that allowing it to hit was not an option. There was every possibility that Anya Hapgrass could launch another attack like that. Aenir could not allow that. The immediate target had changed. Fight carefully, Morgan Noct, Aenir thought. I must do the same. This was a disaster. Everything had been set, they hadn't even needed to do anything, and Ettore Musashi had been eliminated by that monster Palatine. After Hadrian had defeated it, everything should have been in the bag. Gretchen should have won at that point. All she had to do was get Acclima to the arena, use her control over the girl to force a surrender, and reap the rewards. The favor of the new Supreme, and Balte's release from that prison. Ettore Musashi shouldn't even have been a factor by that point. But he turned everything around. No, they had. No doubt this bastard Noct had been part of planning this coup as well. Musashi wasn't smart enough to conceive of such a plan on his own, not unscrupulous enough to execute it. She hadn't made him that way. Yes, this was a disaster, but not an unsalvageable one. I kind of forget she's like low-key Musashi's mom, because she like made the personality. But he's changed since that. Yeah, you're my OC, and he wouldn't do that! This is character assassination. It's interesting. So she made Musashi, right? And she made Silver Saint, even though Silver Saint was supposed to be a parody of Musashi, but it sounds to me like she has a favorite OC type. Just the honorable knight. Just saying.
Maybe suspiciously similar to what she thinks Balte is like.
Interesting, curious. She'd already sent word to Hadrian of the situation with her hourglass. Given the situation... situation twice? They'd kill you for that in some circles. It's not bad. Given the circumstances, she hadn't been able to check for a reply, but it would give him a chance to prepare in case Musashi showed up. In case. Ashdel Durin was in pursuit of him, and he was no weakling. There was every possibility that he wouldn't reach that place alive. In which case, her job right now was to protect Acclima and eliminate Musashi's supporters. That she could gladly do. Allowing a grin to spread across her lips, Gretchen pulled 2 items out of her Ragnarok forge. A small burning dagger in one hand, and a crystalline sphere in the other. As the great wooden dragon flapped its mighty wings above, sending gusts of wind coursing across the rooftops, Gretchen narrowed her eyes at it. She'd been hoping for an opportunity like this. An opportunity for vengeance against the one who had killed her. It was time to launch her first attack. There was guilt lurking inside Morgan Noct's heart, but he didn't have time for it right now. It would have to remain in the dark for now. Ooh, now twice in 2 sentences? Here in writing Civilization, it's best to go for the same word twice.
Elders, I've changed it.
Most people wouldn't risk doing... Okay, I don't know how to
This is like
continue
when Gojo's fighting Zuko and it's like, you can do that?
He can still...
He keeps using
That's
the
my
same
favorite
words
panel.
again and again, but the impact isn't lessened at all.
My favorite JJK panel is when, like, Kashimo absolutely destroys Akari, and then he does his fucking domain expansion again, and they're like, he can still! With the fucking eyes. It's so good. His sword danced through the air, clashing with Acclima's again and again and again, showers of sparks raining down with each impact. With each strike, he could tell that his blade was growing more fragile, spiderweb cracks already forming across the pale metal. It wouldn't last much longer. It couldn't be helped, though. That damage was a natural consequence of the measures he was taking to stay alive. Acclima's ability, Curse Hand, allowed her to subvert any Aether she grabbed with her hand. The Aether became like a hostile virus, attacking the body of its user and rapidly debilitating them. Since she needed to grab her target's Aether to activate the ability, Morgan should have had little to fear from blocking her sword swings. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Let's say Curse Hand hits you. Can you immediately turn off your Aether to, like, stop it short, or, like, once it hits you once you're done?
So if it touches you for even a second, it's going to do some damage, but if you turn it off quickly, you can avoid, like, full bodily collapse.
So Curse Hand isn't always a one-hit KO. It's just, like, caught Karen
It will
off
do
guard.
serious damage, even if it touches you for, like, a second, though.
Interesting. Good to know.
But you can mitigate it, but it's still going to fucking be bad.
Roger. Since she needed to touch her target's Aether... So the real threat of Acclima isn't even necessarily Curse Hand, but it's the fact she gets to Aether reinforce and you don't.
That's it, yeah.
Sorry. Acclima's, blah, blah, blah. Since she needed to touch her target's Aether to activate the ability, Morgan should have had little to fear from blocking her sword swings. However, that was how Curse Hand had worked 2 years ago. Ever since Elysian Fields, Acclima had been loath to demonstrate her abilities in front of Musashi's faction. Who was to say she hadn't developed the ability further since then? So he decided to take a page out of Ashdel Durin's book. The principle was the opposite of Pinpoint Aether. When he swung his sword, Morgan infused his body and his weapon as he normally would. Then at the moment of impact, he removed the infusion entirely. Oh, so just to get the speed and the weight. Oh, reverse pinpoint. That's what they should call this technique. Reverse pinpoint. His attacks retained the momentum his infused swings had given them, so speed and strength wasn't a problem. But durability was another story. How many more times could he swing before his sword shattered? Hell, pain was already beginning to ooze up his arm. How many strikes before that shattered? As Morgan slowed down, Aklyma sped up, her attacks growing more wild and ferocious as she advanced. It almost wasn't fair. She could enjoy the benefits of both infusion and curse hand simultaneously, while her opponent had to manage with fragile flesh and blood. Morgan ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off. This tactic wasn't working. There wasn't a path to victory here. He could just barely defend with his anti-pinpoint tactic, but attacking was another option. Eventually, Aklyma would wear him down. He supposed he could try that, but no. If that didn't work, he'd be dead. Best to keep it as a last resort. F.A.! Morgan pulled himself backwards with a daring rope made of amplified fog, dispelling at the instant it was no longer needed. Curse Hand wasn't just a threat to infusion. It meant that any aether construct or effect Morgan tried to impose was just another avenue through which Aklyma could attack. Launching projectiles like block was out of the question, for example. Panting for breath. But the fog doesn't count once it's not reinforced anymore, right?
Well, the fog itself is like an aether construct, so if you touch that, that's instantly Curse Hand.
Oh, fuck. God damn, Morgan, you're taking risks.
That's why you did it backwards, yeah.
Panting for breath, Morgan ran a finger along his blade, feeling the damage. The weapon had 3, maybe 4 clashes left in it. He'd have to make them count. He was just about to charge back and clang! When a bright blue sphere of crystal landed at his feet. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know who had thrown it. He didn't know what it did. But on a battlefield like this, there was no time to question such things. On a battlefield like this, that could be nothing but an attack. He went to move, but too late. Little Pearl, grinned Anya Hapgrass, as the light erupted forth and devoured Morgan Noct. No! Save him! Oh my goodness. A blue aurora flared across the rooftop, pooling in both Morgan Noct and Aklyma before suddenly receding. When it cleared, the two of them were gone. Aenir looked around with the full extent of its awareness, but no, it could not find where they had gone. Had they even gone somewhere, or had that attack annihilated them? No, if the enemy was capable of that, this fight would never have even begun at all. Yes, the enemy. Aenir returned its attention to the lone woman now standing on the roof below it, Anya Hapgrass. She was looking up, hands on her hips, a broad grin on her face. Did she think she had a better chance of victory now that Morgan Noct was gone? If so, she was mistaken. What was her voice like again?
She's sort of like bright sounding. She sounds friendly.
You can talk if you want. Anya Hapgrass called up cheerily, tapping her earring. I've got a translator. A translator? Aenir didn't know such a thing existed. But still. Morgan Noct and Aklyma, where have they gone? Anya Hapgrass tapped her foot against the ground, her grin growing ever wider. Something was off. Ever since Aklyma had disappeared, this woman's body language had changed completely. Even if she hadn't yet tried to attack Aenir since the battle began, there was still a threat there. Aenir could sense it. It's so cute how you're worried about him, you know, she giggled. Don't worry. Little Pearl just sends people away, so they're not vaporized or anything. Was that what you were worried about? Sent them away to where? I've got no reason to answer that, Anya Hapgrass replied. It's a place they can't get back to here from any time soon. Let's just say that. If that's the case, you've already failed your mission. If Aklyma can't even return here, how will she reach the arena? Anya Hapgrass pursed her lips. She's resourceful. I've got complete faith. While Aklyma fights Morgan Noct, you intend to fight me, Aenir surmised. I do not think this was a good idea for you, Anya Hapgrass. Don't worry, she said.
It gets better.
She stepped forward, and as she did, she pulled a small weapon out from her sleeve. A dagger, its curved blade glowing white-hot. Aenir kept its focus on the thing. If that was an aether armament that Anya Hapgrass had acquired, there was no telling what its abilities could be. Fusion tool! Anya Hapgrass smiled, raising the knife up before her face. Heimdall! The dagger erupted into flames. In an instant, Anya Hapgrass's body had been engulfed by the inferno, and as it was engulfed, it changed. Skin and hair alike was burnt away. Were burnt away? But from beneath them, new hair and new skin quickly made itself known. Eyeballs were scorched by the flames, leaving golden ones in their place. It was like seeing wallpaper be stripped away, revealing the true brickwork beneath. Anya Hapgrass drank in the night air deeply as she spread her arms wide, head angled up towards the sky. Oh my god! She groaned, cracking her neck. That is actually so much better! No, that wasn't right. Anya Hapgrass didn't do that, and Anya Hapgrass didn't say that. That hair, those eyes, that voice. Gretchen Hale narrowed her gaze as she looked back down and eyed you. Hey, she still has some capitals in her name, though.
It was never versatile.
It's not... It's not as bad as Lucifer Westmore.
Yeah. You need to be...
His name is in the mud.
Truly heinous.
What did he do? Who is he? If he's not Palatine, who is Lucifer Westmore? Tell me.
I don't want to.
Her overalls had burnt away too, leaving a dress of simple red cloth. But that dress was loaded down heavily. Bracelets and baubles, bracelets and ankles.
Sorry.
Ooh. Well, you know, all writers get old after a while, and with age, you know, comes deficiencies in memory.
Punches you!
Bracelets and baubles, piercings and anklets, necklaces and brooches, accessories and attachments. Every inch of available space had been taken advantage of, to such that the woman seemed to be glittering in the night light. In the night light?
Yeah.
Gretchen Hale was an expert on aether armaments, after all. It seemed she'd come prepared this time. "Hiya, tree," she growled. "It's been a while." I can't believe she would call him that. That's fucked up. He's a fallen beast. It was a good thing Morgan not... Actually, does Aenir consider himself a tree?
Yeah.
What was the name he had for trees that weren't, like, living? Were they, like, sleepy or some shit? There was, like, a term he had.
Sorry about that. Simpletons, he called them, for normal trees.
Oh. Oh. It was a good thing, Morganach supposed, that he wasn't afraid of heights. One second he'd been fighting a climb along the rooftops of Azum Ha, and in the next he was somewhere else entirely. A circular platform of blue crystal, around 10 meters across, with the climber standing on the other side. Where they were wasn't the issue, though. The issue was where the platform was. Hello, and welcome to the system. Azum Ha was one of the biggest city worlds in the galaxy, right next to the UAP's Serendipity. The buildings stretched so high that there were many places that had to project an artificial sky, just to prevent neuroses in the populace. When you were on Azum Ha, the urban jungle was inescapable. If Morgan looked down right now, if Morgan squinted, he could just about make out that landscape. How high up were they? Morgan couldn't put a number on it, but he didn't think the number would make him feel much better anyway. If they weren't in the upper atmosphere, they were damn well close. At any rate, this was the border between the sky and the stars. That sphere had done this. Beyond that, Morgan didn't have the luxury of speculation. He had to focus on survival right now. He had to focus on victory. Presumably, there's one of two options, right? One of them... Oh no, because he sees Azum Ha.
Yeah.
So does this imply she built a really big pillar to the sky just to use this move?
It's a platform, not a pillar, but...
Oh, okay. It's like a Smash Bros. Platform.
Yeah, it's
like
Final
hovers in the
Destination.
air. Beautiful.
The climber
Oh
really
my
said
goodness.
1v1 me on Final Destination, no waver.
See, Dragon, this wouldn't even phase Dragon, because all he'd do is step off and then Gemini World right before he fell to the bottom. He'd be like, I'm good. That sphere had done this. He had to focus on victory. He held his near-broken sword in both hands, ready against the girl opposite him. Aklyma looked just as confused as he had for a moment, but then her face hardened and her eyes turned cold. It seemed she'd reached the same conclusion he had. Against an enemy like this, with a battlefield like this, in a situation like this, this might no longer be a fight that both of them could walk away from. Hold on. I just realized... Fucking Gretchen just said Final Destination, no I.
She was like, I need to fight the tree. Fuck off.
That's so funny. Alright. We did it. Let me get the questions pulled up. My Discord's being super laggy, forgive me. Alright, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Weiser asks, does the have to wrap it completely and never wire to stop it rule hold for both types of Aether Awakening, whether or not they still puppet part of their original body?
What do you mean? Sorry, I didn't catch the first half of the sentence.
Does the have to wrap it completely and never wire to stop it rule hold for both types of Aether Awakening, whether or not they still puppet part of their original body?
It would, yes.
Okay. Next, Lan asks, how easy is it to overcharge Neverwire? Can only Cadman do it, or can any relatively powerful Aether user?
It will be, you'd either need to have a very big capacity, like absurdly big, or it's absurdly skilled. It's not for normal people to do. Wuming could maybe do it.
Wuming could maybe do it. Okay, that's a good benchmark.
But that wouldn't be because of like raw power, that would be because of like technique.
Wiser... Lan asks, how many minutes would it take Ashdel Durin surging his Aether to die of old age? Does he have like an hour left or like 5 minutes?
He does not know, and I don't want to tell you.
Oh, man. Wiser asks, would an Ashdel Durin awakening still be cosmetically affected by the aging tick?
It would depend on whether it was one that was its own thing, or one that like was possessing his corpse. If it was possessing a corpse, something that would still apply. The corpse would rot acceleratedly.
Interesting. Alright, and Imp has a question for you. I know we vaguely talked about theories for this.
Yes.
But Imp's curious, what's the process for changing genders, like in Aetheral Space? Like, how close to cis can a trans person get, / how long does it take? And potentially, what was Morgan's transition like for him, if you're comfortable answering?
I don't want to say that off the cuff, just like in an Aetheral questions, to be honest, because that requires more thought on my part, I would say. But I would say it's much more advanced than real life current medicine.
Roger that. Alright. Lastly, Rurum asks, I remember Tan mentioning Arc 3 was going to have a robot girl. What other plots / arcs deviated largely from their original conception? And what were some of the reasons, other than like, oh, I just thought it'd be cooler?
A lot of... Well, there's a whole arc that ended up not happening that's in the original Ethereal Space.
What was it? Wait, how long was the original Ethereal? I thought there were only like 2 chapters.
No, there's like 3... We got to the start of alternate arc 3 with the robot girl.
What the hell?
We never met the robot.
You
girl,
never, you never sent me those.
Well, I posted them, you didn't read them.
No, you did not. I checked our DMs. I only have the first 2 chapters.
Well, I kept posting.
Where'd you post them at?
There was a different railroad. It's not around anymore, so you can't find it now. But basically, they went to this abandoned, like there was this like old legendary like space station that had gone missing, like called Cloud9, and they ended up like running into it. It was like a ghost ship, and it was like one of Skipper's old special officer sort of
Vanta Black?
No, it was a completely different character.
Oh.
The character was like a cult leader. They don't exist in current Aetheral Space. But it was like, it revealed Skipper's whole thing much earlier.
Oh, why did you cut it?
It didn't really... It felt like I was just doing it too quickly.
Interesting. Wow, I really wish I got a chance to read that. The cast in general behaved different from what I remember from the 2 chapters I read. They had like slightly different vibes.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that's everything. Well, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye!